Welcome back to the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I had to interrupt that song, man, dude. I was jamming out. That was good. I like that one. I'm Garrett Neal, your host as always for the weekly box office breakdown. Almost through January. It's the last week. And we got one more week that we kind of got to deal with crappy movies, but people still go to the movies, you know? So we got to report because that's what I do. That's what I'm here for. That's what I was put on this earth to do, was sit in the basement of University Hall and talk all about the weekend box office numbers. And today what we're going to be talking about, Glass retaining the crown at the box office. The rest of the January releases, they're bad. And looking forward to next week, oh, badness, it's going to continue. But before we get to that, we got to take a look at this week's top 5, and as alluded to just moments before, Glass retained its #1 spot, did drop 53.2% going into its second week. That's going to happen. It's going to happen, especially coming after the solid opening weekend that it had. It did manage to still bring in $18.8 million this week. That brings its total domestic gross up to 73.4, and you know what? Still, we talked about it last week. Got that $20 million budget. I think he's doing okay. Additionally, it opened up in the remainder of the global markets, all that is except for China, which it does not have a release date for yet, so who knows if it will get out there eventually or not. It added 23.6 overseas this weekend, bringing its total worldwide gross, so domestic and overseas included, up to 162.7 million. Although I do think it is worth noting, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, because as far as like money wise, I think it's doing okay. I enjoyed the movie, so I was not disappointed into it. But just a little fun fact looking at it, it is domestically tracking behind Split. As I just mentioned, its 10-day total is 73.425 million. Whereas Split after 10 days is 77.3 million, so it's not doing as well as Split did, but I think if you're Universal, you can't be too disappointed. And you know, I still think that just M. Night Shyamalan in general, just he's a small budget director. You know, I don't think he's gonna be a big box office guy ever. I think it would be nice if he had some more positive films in him going forward, but I think the Splits and the Sixth Sense, as far as box office success goes, are going to be a little bit more the exception rather than the rule. I think if you are going to give him a huge budget, you will probably end up disappointed, because the style of film he likes to make tends to not... I mean, a lot of his films have a lot of problems, but I just think in general, judging by Glass, which was kind of marketed, I think, to be like a big blockbuster hit, you know, it was like, oh, this is, come see Glass, it's gonna be huge, and it's just not really that kind of film, and I don't think he's ever gonna make that kind of film, no matter how much money you give him. So I think you give him that medium budget, and he'll do well for you. Moving on to #2, The Upside continues to hold well, had the best hold within the top 10, or the second best. Outside of, there's a couple exceptions, which we'll talk about later, but it dropped just 20% going into its third week, brought in 11.9 million. Its total gross now 62.8 million. It's doing quite well, and especially considering a lot of the critic reviews, it's surprising, but people are loving that feel-good story, apparently. I have not seen it, so can't comment on it personally, but it has been a big surprise at the box office, certainly, and it's the second highest grossing film of 2019. So, you know, way to go, The Upside. Aquaman still holding in there, #3, just chugging along, dropped 28.6% in its sixth week, brought in 7.2 million. And the big news for Aquaman this week is that it passed Dark Knight Rises to become the highest grossing DC film of all time. Its global total now up to $1.09 billion. And that's not too shabby. It is also good enough for third highest grossing. This is of course worldwide, not just domestic. Third highest worldwide grossing Warner Brothers film at that 1.09 billion, ranking behind Return of the King, which is at 1.1 billion, and then way up there is Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 at $1.34 billion, holding on to the highest grossing Warner Brothers film spot, which it will look to hold on to forever and ever and ever, probably, until Warner Brothers comes up with another property, which they will do eventually, because they have a lot of properties and they will continue to get more. But big milestone for Aquaman there. Just again, I mean, it is a blockbuster film, but it's this type of success, especially overseas, is a big surprise, and I think as much as some people liked it, I think you'd be hard pressed to find. It's one of those things like, I mean, Avatar. There's a lot of people who straight up just don't like Avatar anymore, but even when it came out, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who was like, oh yeah, Avatar is my favorite film of all time. But there it was, highest grossing film of all time, and still is worldwide, though second domestically. Darn shame as far as I'm concerned, because I'm an Avatar truther, but I would not call it my favorite film of all time either. But Aquaman, I don't think you could find someone who would say, dude, Aquaman, favorite DC film, dude, so much better than Dark Knight, so much better than those other Batman movies, so much better than the original Wonder Woman. Who cares? They're all crap, dude. Aquaman is the one. I mean, I'm sure there's a few people who say Aquaman is their favorite DC film of all time, but there have been some really, really good DC films, and this one was just the one that, I mean, obviously some of it is time sensitive, but I mean, you know, it's crazy that this is the one that kind of really exploded. Moving on to number 4, we had the first new release. The Kid Who Would Be King from Fox brought in $7.1 million. That is a little under expectations. As we mentioned last week, it was kind of projected to get around $10 million, so not great. Did have a reported production budget of around $60 million, so not exactly what they were looking for, which is interesting because it did get some solid reviews. Has a 6.5 on IMDb, 66 Metascore, 87% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with 105 reviews, 72% audience rating, and it got a B+ cinema score. So pretty solid all around, but I guess it just didn't get the word of mouth out, didn't have a strong enough ad campaign. I don't know what it was, but despite the pretty positive reviews, it just didn't get that opening weekend that it was hoping for. And I mean, luckily again, it does have one more week with little competition to see if maybe it can hold well. But after that, we got the Lego Movie coming out. That's going to be pretty direct competition right there. A couple more weeks after that, we got How to Train Your Dragon again, hitting that family market. So I think we're looking at a little bit of a disappointment, an early disappointment as far as The Kid Who Would Be King. But it was not alone in disappointing, and we will get to that a little bit later. And rounding out the top 5 is the one, the only, my favorite, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, bringing in another $6.1 million. It also dropped 20%, so right up there with the upside as far as small drops this week. Its total gross is now just about $169 million, even a little bit over, but not much. And it is just about 700,000 behind Hotel Transylvania 2 to become Sony Animated Pictures' highest grossing film of all time. So sometime this week it will cross that boundary, and we'll talk about it next week. And I will be so happy to, because love that movie, so good. That's the top 5, but a couple other things I wanted to talk about before we went into next week's new film, the singular, mostly because there's not really a lot to talk about as far as that's concerned, so I wanted to stick with this as much as possible. First, we had Serenity being the other disappointment, which I had alluded to. Got bad reviews and also performed pretty poorly. This one was Anne Hathaway. Matthew McConaughey had a 5.1 IMDb right now, 38 Metascore, 20% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 29% audience approval rating, and a hot D+ cinema score. And I mean, if you know cinema scores, they tend to range in the positive. I mean, like, even a B cinema score is only okay. Like, a B+ is pretty solid. You know, a D+, that's a big yikes right there. Big yikes all around. And because of that, it came in at I mean, it still got 8, you know, but it brought in 4.4 million. It was looking to get, like, projected around 5.5, and and that's like our projections. I mean, I'm sure the studio didn't think it was going to do that well. It kind of got delayed for a while, so that's a sign they knew it was going to do well. But just a mess. It's January. This is where you dump your trash. You know, we had Replicas earlier, which was supposed to be awful. Serenity is now supposed to be pretty bad. Like, the Kid Who Would Be King. I mean, the one thing, you know, hey, maybe it didn't do as well box office wise as they thought they would, but at least they can hold their heads high knowing they at least made a product that people are enjoying. I mean, these other ones, it's like you can't really even say that. I mean, there's always someone who enjoys it, but by and large, it's just you can't even. I mean, that's just going to be one that so the big names in you know, Keanu Reeves just going to sweep Replicas under the rug. Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway just going to sweep Serenity under the rug. Just keep on moving on to the next. And as far as when we're talking about holds, and impressive holds, the one exception was Green Book, which came in at number 6, but it's an exception because it had a huge expansion, adding over 1,500 films this week, bringing in 5.5 million, just about, getting the Oscar push, and a bunch of the other Oscar movies got expansions this week. We had The Favorite adding 1,000 theaters. That came in at number 14 this week, bringing in 2.5 million. Bohemian Rhapsody added just under 300 theaters. We had Vice adding about 400 theaters this week. We had Star is Born still hanging around. That's week 17 for Star is Born. It added 777 theaters. It brought in 1.2 million this week. I still need to see Vice, and I need to see Bohemian Rhapsody. So hopefully I will see one, if not both of those this weekend as far as Best Picture nominees are concerned, because I do want to try and see all of them. I still got to see Roma too, but at least that's on Netflix. If I do need to watch it on there, I can, so that's good. I should have watched either Bohemian Rhapsody or Vice this past weekend because they got expansions and I could have gone to see them. I wasn't seeing anything else this weekend. Did not see anything in theaters this weekend because didn't really want to see Kid Who Would Be King or Serenity. But I didn't. I was slacking. So now I'm behind, and I gotta try and watch both of them this weekend, or one, you know, during the week, one on the weekend or something, because, you know, after this weekend, we're going to start getting stuff I want to see. We got Lego Movie Part 2, which I don't know how good it's going to be, but I do want to go see it. Then we got Alita Battle Angel, which I'm very excited for. Then we got How to Train Your Dragon 3, which I'm even more excited for, because I've seen some of the reviews out of that. I mean, that's out in some parts of the world already, and man, am I excited. So then I'm gonna lose the Best Picture stuff. Plus, I mean, the Oscars are not that far away. I mean, the time between nominations and the show is getting ever shorter. Before we wrap up this segment, we also have to look at the per theater average, which this week was Never Look Away, which was in one theater, and it brought in $25,700, $1,789 would be the easiest way to say that, in that one theater. It's a German film about an artist named Kurt Barnett who escaped from East Germany and now lives in West Germany, but he is tormented by his childhood under the Nazis and GDR regime. It has a 7.3 on IMDb right now with a 67 Metascore. Could be interesting. Just always interesting to look at those per theater averages every week. So with that, we will take a brief break before we come down and take a look at Miss Bala, the one new wide release film we got next week, and then that'll be it. So thank you for hanging around. We got just a little bit left through this break. Also be here. I've been Garrett Neal. This is the box office breakdown. We shall be right back. Alright, welcome back to the studio, guys. I'm still Garrett Neal, and this is still the box office breakdown here live on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Miss Bala is the one new release we've got this week. It's a remake, which I found out a few days ago when I was walking through the lovely DePaul Library Lincoln Park video section, and I was just kind of browsing and I saw a film, Miss Bala, on the shelf, and I was like, is that the same Miss Bala that's coming out in a few weeks? And I looked, and sure enough, it was, or at least by the description, it looked like it was the same plot, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, it's a remake. Of course it's a remake. I mean, it's not a remake based on a well-known film, so interesting choice, but it is coming out anyway. It is starring Gina Rodriguez, about a woman named Gloria who finds a power she never knew she had when she's drawn into a dangerous world of cross-border crime. Surviving will require all of her cunning, inventiveness, and strength. Dun dun dun. It's got a sweet 4.4 on IMDb right now. I don't know if those people have actually seen it, or if they just don't think it looks good, or whatever. Who knows? No reviews on Rotten Tomatoes yet, or on Metascore, or Metacritic. Metascore. On Metacritic. But it is supposed to release in about 2,000 theaters this weekend, and it's projected at a sweet $7.5 million, which is actually down 17% from last week. So it is trending in the wrong direction. Which isn't really a surprise, because I don't think there's a lot of buzz around this. Don't think it's going to be that good, if I'm honest. But hey, people might just want to go see a dumb action movie because they're tired of going to see Aquaman, you know? And that's it, you know? That's it. And so, probably going to see a lot of familiar faces around the box office next week, but as I have said, I'll still be here, because just because it's boring doesn't mean I'm not going to report on it, and I'm going to do my best to make it interesting for you to listen to. And then we'll start getting into some really interesting stuff once the big movies start coming out in February. From February on, it's, you know, it's just going to be crazy, man. And at least, even if there aren't any records getting broken, which there will be, at least come May, there will be, or March. Excuse me. It will come March. I mean, come May, there'll definitely be some records breaking. But in March too, Captain Marvel, we'll see what that can do. But next week we got Miss Bala. A week after that, then Lego Movie Part 2. I'm gonna be here. Hopefully, I can get myself out to the theaters this weekend. Well, I will at least once. Hopefully, I can do it twice. Then, boom, I'll be done with my Best Picture nominees, and I won't have to worry about it anymore. Bohemian Rhapsody. Not really too worried about it. I think I'll probably have fun with that one. Might not love it, but I think I'll have fun with it at least. Vice, not really my kind of deal. Not too pumped to see that. But, you know, it's what I got. The sacrifices I have to make when I'm pursuing my my dream of being a movie critic and getting my degree in film theory. You know, it's just, I just have to go see these movies, and it's torture, and oh, how will I live? But really the thing I got to focus on is living past Wednesday, where it's going to be a sweet negative something degrees, usually hovering around between negative 12 and negative 21 degrees. And that's not including wind chill. So it's going to be terrible. But I'm going to do my best to stay warm. Probably going to lock myself inside and watch movies all day on Wednesday, which that's going to be fun. Hope you guys are able to stay warm this week as well, and enjoy your week. Hopefully you guys can go out and see some fun stuff this weekend too. Maybe if you have some Best Picture nominees you got to catch up on. Maybe Ms. Ballo really interests you. I don't know. Maybe you still haven't seen some of the December stuff. If you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, go see it. Do it. Just do it. Doesn't matter what your film interests are. Just see it. You'll probably like it. If you don't, at least you'll have given a film that is very creative and unique your money, which makes it worth it no matter what. With that, that was a little bit of rambling there because I had to get when you have this little to talk about, you got to ramble sometimes just to push your show to the end of its time. But now we're there, so you don't have to deal with me anymore. Got my this week box office numbers from Box Office Mojo. Got my projections from Box Office Pro. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. As I said, stay warm. I'm going to do my best to as well. Before you go, got to remind you to tune in to Radio DePaul next weekend, February 1st to the 3rd, for the 8th annual Rock the Clock Marathon. It'll be live from 2 p.m. on Friday to 2 p.m. on Sunday, right here on the air, raising money for the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital. And you can help us reach our fundraising goal by donating at our Demonthon page, which can be found on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the website radio.depaul.edu. So be sure to tune in to Radio DePaul next weekend for unique, creative, and fun shows you can only hear during these 48 hours. People get really creative during the Rock the Clock Marathon and help us rock the clock on Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.